Hi, I'm Sam Gilbey and I'm a pop culture artist, and well, I've been working with Fanatic for probably 6-7 years now. I mean, it's been so long now, it just feels like, I've just worked with Anthony and Fanatic, before they were in Fanatic actually, when they used to be Iron Gut Publishing, so way back in the day. And it's always been fairly easy, I am able to go and make the artwork that I want. Sometimes that you might get a note from the studio, but generally speaking, it's just a case of here are some titles that you can do artwork for. I'll go away and make something, and most of the time it's been pretty plain sailing, really. What's been my favourite? That's really hard because each one, when you're doing it, you just get totally into it, and obviously each one you do, you want to put your best into it. I guess then, looking back, probably the one that was biggest for me in terms of showing a direction that I was starting to take was my Jaws print that I did. Partly because I've always seen myself as a portrait artist, and I certainly do portraits when I can. And sometimes when you're working with the licenses, depending on the title, you're not always able to include the actors' faces. So with Jaws, I remember I had an idea for including all the actors, and that was the way I wanted to go. And then it became apparent that we couldn't do that. It wasn't going to happen. So then it's kind of seeing how can you take your style and find a different way around it. How can you work in a different way? Well, the thing for me is about getting into art is, I don't remember a time when I wasn't. My earliest memories are just as a kid, and I just drew every day basically. So I would literally come in from school, and the TV would be on in the background, and I'd be sitting at a coffee table just drawing, and also the things that I draw now, I'm lucky enough to draw professionally, are the things I just drew for fun back then. So it's all of that pop culture stuff, whether it's Transformers or Star Wars or Spider-Man, Batman, things like that. So it's been really awesome to get to a point where I can do those and get paid for them. But I have to thank my 6-year-old self who just kind of stuck with it and just drew all the time just for fun. So this was, I guess one of the earlier ones that I worked on with Fanatic, and this really, like I say, this started a bit of a new way of working for me. If you can't use an actor, you can still show their hat and their coat, but this was, obviously the perspective in this is really interesting. If you know the movie, there's a very brief kind of insert shot where you actually see the ship sort of here, and Quint's looking down at Hooper, and then he pivots to look at Brody, and I just realised that that camera pan, if I took that, I could then paint the whole ship, and if you make it vertical, it automatically works well for a print. But it also kind of makes it more intense somehow. It's almost like the gravity going that way, if that makes sense. But then you're looking down, and then I realised the playing cards are at an angle here, and if I took Quint's jacket, had that on the same line, that kind of leads you up into the corner where we just have Bruce. And the idea here is obviously, of course, from that point, Quint is going to be seeing that, but it's just about having them looking away enough, so it's just about believable that they're not. And the shark is, in fact, a lot of people don't necessarily see the shark's fin the first time, kind of discover it later. There's a bit of a shadow here as well. And then the final touch was just having the typography and the title, the logo as well, and it all has that sense of that kind of unusual perspective, and that angle makes it hopefully quite an intense image. This is one I did for the 25th anniversary of Jurassic Park, and I guess that's another thing that to me feels quite recent, but I've just done one for the 30th anniversary, so yeah, time flies. And yeah, obviously amazing movie. I remember seeing this at the cinema first time around, and being blown away, like we all were. And there's lots of incredible scenes in this movie. There's something about the awe of these early scenes where they're first seeing the dinosaurs, that really appealed to me, and I think that made sense to me to do for like an anniversary. Yeah, there's loads of awesome kind of scary scenes. You know, maybe at some point I'll do a T-Rex as well, but this was just kind of that thing, and off the back of like the Jaws piece that I'd done, this idea of having like a quite extreme angle, you know, which again you see in the shot, but again it's a combination of like you're looking at various different scenes to try and make a composite that feels like a thing you've seen, but actually, you know, it's a sort of still an artistic impression of it. So, I mean, as you'll notice, you know, presuming that you know the film, this is really only a few seconds after the print I did for 25 years. So, you know, I guess every 5 years I'll work a few seconds through the movie or something. But again, it's like there's something about, because it's the anniversary, it just felt like, again, being more of a celebration, and this is obviously, this kind of scene captures that feeling. And also, so last year I worked with Universal through a company I work with called the Poster Posse, and I did some social media for Jurassic World Dominion, and I worked with them on that, on doing like a travel poster, where I did one for basically for Malta, where there's like a big chase scene there. And you know, I really liked that idea, and I just thought it'd be nice to kind of come to it, and the genre of travel posters is quite interesting, so just having like big typography and the border and everything, and kind of making that part of the artwork. And again, so this works as like the idea that you could use this to sort of advertise coming to Jurassic Park. And again, obviously we know that things go a bit wrong, but you know, this is that kind of moment before it has. So so this is the print I did for E.T. You know, and it was amazing to get to do, you know, 3 kind of classic Spielberg movies with Jurassic Park and Jaws and this. And you know, for me it's like, how can I really get the right kind of mood, and you know, when the ship's coming down and the kind of pink beam of light, you know, just felt that would be a really evocative scene to do. And you know, things like, yeah, I'm not going to show the characters, but you know, to take the bike, which is obviously an important character, and I remember it took ages, and like really a long time to paint the crate on the bike and the blanket and stuff like that. And then things like the footprints, and I think, yeah, there's some Reese's Pieces that are in the undergrowth there. And you know, just have the pink light in the trees. And there's also, we did another version of this because in the movie it's kind of sunset as the ship is beginning to come down, and then it's like kind of like this blue nighttime scene almost straight after. So we did a variant because it felt like you could actually see it either way. It worked quite nicely with the orange as well, but the blue, that feels like a lot of the marketing that was done for the film, so it feels kind of in line with that. And then yeah, this is Rocky, which was part of a set that we did of, well, Rocky 1 to 4. Obviously there are other Rocky movies, but I stuck to Rocky's career, so like Rocky 1 to 4, and we actually did it like, it was 4 pieces that worked together, but it was kind of like 2 diptychs which then make a quadriptych. And yeah, you know, I just love these movies, so I wanted each one to be, obviously one of the really cool things about the Rocky movies is when there's you know, the montage of the training and stuff. I wanted to make the prints kind of get across some of that, so I thought, well, each one's going to have some boxing in there, obviously going to have the ring and everything, and all the nice lights that you get in there, and the bit of the sense of the crowd, and then really have nice detailed portraits of the characters like going through the series. So like Rocky 2 has Adrian and Paulie, for instance, and then, you know, the colour palette, obviously the reds. I found that across the series you've kind of got this red, white and blue, obviously goes through it a lot, and then you've also got, like in Rocky 2 and 4, there's the gold, and which goes nicely with the red, so you get this nice thing across the series. And then in each one I also wanted like one of the kind of a bit from the training, and I just found that when the border and this kind of tinting where this is like a bit blue, or like kind of grayscale almost, that's a nod to like the original posters, and this typography as well. So it's like, I love that kind of thing where you're trying to find like what's the right font to use. Again, how do you make your own thing, that also just is it's like you're still sort of doffing your cap to what's come before. So this was the print I did for I believe the 30th anniversary of Die Hard a few years ago. So I mean, what an amazing movie. Again, like I sort of said about Jaws and some of the others, you know, this was a case where I wasn't going to be able to include Bruce Willis's face or Alan Rickman or anyone else. So it's about thinking of like, so Die Hard is obviously, we kind of look back at it as an action movie. When you watch it, it's also, you know, it's really about how he outwits the terrorists by hiding in the shadows. So, you know, I just thought I would sort of really go for that. And one of the coolest scenes is where he's hiding in the elevator shaft. And so I just kind of, you know, something like this is, the idea is you want it to feel like it's like a frame from the movie. And it is to an extent, but what you've got to do is, because obviously the movie's landscape, so you're looking at the wide shots and then you're kind of expanding out to bits that maybe aren't included. And in this case I was able to also combine it with getting lots of detail where he's writing the names of that he hears on his arm, you know, with a Sharpie. So just kind of like, you don't see that in the wide shot, but just to kind of combine these different things. And then also to be seeing down into the elevator. And then, you know, it's all about the dynamic angles. Everything's coming out from this point, and just using the perspective to kind of make something hopefully nice and dynamic, even though, yeah, it's just a lift shaft. So yeah, if people want to see more of my work, then, you know, the best place is online. So on social media, my Instagram is Sam Gilbey, Twitter is the same, my Facebook page is Sam Gilbey Illustrates, my website is samgilbey.com. And I've also got a Domestica course on digital portrait painting. So, you know, I get a lot of questions from aspiring artists about how to get into what I'm doing. That's one way you could kind of like check out some of my techniques in a lot of detail. But yeah, you know, happy to answer questions from people who want to get into what I'm doing, which is doing licensed artwork. It was always my dream, so, you know, I can give you some insight into that if you like.